All right, so this afternoon we are going to talk about resumes and how to make your resume stand out. Whether you're applying for opportunities this spring or even preparing for opportunities in the future, we're going to give you some quick tips on how to make your resume look professional and shine amongst the others. As you think about putting together your resume, it's important to think about the system that is going to be utilized. And so we have seen trends in which companies are utilizing applicant tracking systems. And so what that means is they're using your resume to feed through a tracking system. That's why it's so imperative that you are tailoring all of your application materials because they are looking for specific keywords and phrases that were listed in the job posting itself. And so, important things to think of and rule of thumb, you always want to keep your resume simple. And so, we're going to talk about how to really lay out your resume in a clear, concise, and consistent manner. But when in doubt, always keep it simple. I know there's lots of different resume templates and formats out there, but we're going to discuss what is going to look most professional and how to best showcase that in your application. As I mentioned, it's so important to utilize those keywords. So once again, always referring to the actual job posting itself, looking at the language and the skills and qualities that they're looking for so that you can emulate that directly on your own resume. And also, you want to make sure that you're connecting with the human that will be reading your resume. So, yes, although they're going to potentially be utilizing a tracking system to kind of look through the different resumes, you still want to draw the reader's attention and really make that direct connection of how your experience is a direct translation to those opportunities that you're applying to. And thinking about how to make your resume stand out, you want to share your experience and you want to really expand and build that out. Instead of focusing on bright colors or flashy formats, it's your experience and the tangible things that you're showcasing is what matters the most to employers and recruiters. And so you want to think about your document itself and how to really organize it. Ultimately, you have a story to share. And so, with thinking about the reader in mind, utilize that industry or that specific company in mind as you lay out your document. And so you want to make sure that it's very easy to read. It's not distracting. There's not lots of different graphics or text boxes or things that are spaced all around the page because you want to create a document that can be easy to just pinpoint and draw out key phrases, quick experiences, tangible items that the reader can identify and see what exactly you've been involved with. And so the resume is also your chance to show your fit for the role. So you want to think about this as not only a piece of your personal branding and who you are as a professional, but it's your opportunity to showcase the things you've been involved with and the transferable skills that you've gained in on-campus experiences, part-time jobs, internships, all of those things you've been involved with and how that's a direct correlation to what you're applying to. You also want to think about quality over quantity as well. So yes, your resume is a snapshot of who you are as a professional and the things you've been involved with, but you also want to think about what exactly do I want to showcase? Employers understand that your resume is not a whole life history of all the things you've been involved with, whether that was high school, college, and then even going forward. But think about what's the most relevant and important things that I want to showcase as opposed to everything that I want to showcase. And then also, it's important to think about keeping your resume relevant. So, how you've pivoted during the pandemic. Maybe you had an internship lined up over the summer that unfortunately didn't happen because of the pandemic. But it's okay to still incorporate that on your resume to showcase that you were selected for that opportunity. Or maybe you've engaged in more remote work or different projects or skills-based learning that to accommodate the virtual learning space that we've been in over the past couple months. And so I just wanted to mention that you can also include that information of how you've pivoted during the pandemic specifically. So as you're thinking about your resume, the formatting piece is so critical. And so with your resume, you do want to keep it to one page. And so here we have an example of a resume that we've created in our office from a blank Word document. You know, As you look online and see lots of different resume examples, there's lots of templates that are out there. And we don't advise necessarily to utilize a template because they can be very limiting in the information that you provide and how to best lay it out on your document. So in order to really maximize the space and allow you to control the narrative, we recommend building it out from just a blank Word document, as you can see on the screen here. If you like the look of this resume, we do have some templates that we've created just like this on our website itself. So if you go to the LSU Career Center website, you can see resumes just like this that you can actually tweak and tailor with your own information. But I do want to share, it does not have to look just like this, but it's important to remember the 3 C's, that your document is clear, concise, and consistent, because your document is making an impression within those first couple seconds that the employer is reading it. And so you want to stand out with your professionalism and how easy it is to read the document and all of the things you've been involved with. Some formatting things to think about: you can adjust your margins to 0.5 inches as opposed to 1 inch if you're tight on space and you still want to keep it to that 1 page. We recommend utilizing a normal font size, such as 11 or 12 point, but you really don't want to go smaller than 11 point because it's very hard to read. And then on the flip side, larger than 12 point font can be a little too large and take up too much space on your document. As we mentioned before, you'll want to avoid any colored text or images or photos. You want your experience to talk about itself, and you don't want to distract away from the great tangible experience that you have gained. And so, as a quick overview of this resume on the right-hand side, I did want to highlight a couple key factors and things to think about as you're laying out your document. So up at the top, you'll notice that your name and contact information is imperative. So make sure you include that up at the very top so the employer knows exactly who is applying and how to best reach you to set up an interview in the future. As far as contact information, make sure you include a current email address. It's absolutely okay to include your LSU email, or if you have a professional personal email address, you can include that instead. Next, you do want to highlight your education section. Since all of you are current students, it's important that you list your education section first, and you make it very clear what your degree is that you are currently pursuing at LSU. And so you want to highlight that you're at Louisiana State University, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and your anticipated grad date. So the month and the year that you anticipate to graduate. And then you do want to keep your document formal and include the actual degree. So whether it's a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science, and then include the major that you're pursuing. If you have any minors or concentrations, that is important information to include. Also, if you're a part of the honors college, if you're doing any thesis work, those are great pieces to incorporate as well. And then another element you could think about is related coursework. So this is your chance to highlight a couple key classes that you've taken that would be relevant to the opportunity that you're applying to. So that really encompasses the education section. You do want to avoid all high school information. Even if this is your first year here at LSU, we recommend removing high school from the education section. It's okay to still incorporate high school information in experience, but really your education should only reflect your current degree at LSU. As far as the experience section, and we'll go more in depth about how to create these strong bullet point statements, but it's important to think about how you're going to lay out your experience. If you have one experience section, or if you have multiple categories. For example, some students like to have a work experience section, while some students like to highlight a leadership section. So regardless of how many sections you have, once again, always make sure it is consistent amongst all of those different categories. And so what that means is make sure it's easy to identify what your role is, the date range that you participated in that activity, the organization and the employer, city and state, and then bullet point statements that describe what you got to do. And then down at the bottom, you'll notice some additional categories and things to incorporate, such as hard skills, which would be technology that you're proficient in, additional certifications that you have gained, additional languages that you're fluent in, etc. Honors, awards, activities, scholarships, those are all wonderful things to incorporate within your resume. As you're working on your bullet point statements, helpful to think about them with this bullet point formula. of strong skill-based action verb plus specifics about what you did, plus the purpose of how it helped the company. So with these three pieces in mind, you're going to be able to build out those strong bullet point statements that you're highlighting in your experience section. So for example, one example is you could say collaborate with 5 group members on 15-minute presentation to inform K through 12 students about sustainability. So with using this formula, you'll notice there's no personal pronouns. So that's something with your resume is you want to remove all personal pronouns from the document itself and just have these action verb statements. And so we do have a list of lots of different action verbs that you can utilize in your resume located on our Career Center website and in our student career guide. We have a whole page dedicated to action verbs. And so that's a great place to start conceptualizing and thinking about what did I do in these different activities? Maybe in your student worker position, you work at the front desk and a big piece is customer service. So you could think about, okay, how can I describe my experience answering phone calls and directing inquiries in a positive customer service manner? Or maybe you get to help with certain projects within that office. So thinking about what you do day to day and then utilizing this formula to build out those descriptions. It's always important that you are tailoring your resume too. So as we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, you always want to look at the job description and the qualities and skills that they're looking for. This will help you build out your bullet point statements to make sure that once again, it's matching what they're looking for. And if they use a resume tracking software, it's going to match those keywords between the technology piece, but then also your experience. So for example, let's say you're applying to a position as an art curator intern, where they're looking for someone that has in-depth knowledge of Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Twitter. They're looking for someone with strong written and verbal communication skills. And they're looking for someone with high energy, positive person who wants to make a difference on the founding team of a startup. So with that in mind, now you can go ahead and think about, okay, where in my past experiences have I gained those experiences? So for example, 1, promoted to server in 4 months due to exceeding expectations serving guests in role as host. So this is showing the ability to have strong written and verbal communication skills because you're serving guests through that customer service. Created and presented annual budget of $8,500 to the council for review and approval. That shows, high energy, someone who's wanting to make a difference for a startup. Manage social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, etc. So that shows your in-depth working knowledge of Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. So once again, always making that direct tie to the job description itself. And then a quick plug also for the cover letter, you want to make sure that that document also matches the description as well. So if it's the same position, now you want to think about how can I emulate that in my cover letter? So finally, in my role as the volunteer coordinator at St. Tammany Animal Shelter, I helped manage all social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to promote events. While managing the social media, I was able to research best practices across platforms, which led to an increase in number of followers by 20%, directly increasing event attendance. So you can see with the cover letter format, you're not speaking in those bullet point statements, but now you're talking in paragraph sentence style. So that's a way to still describe your experience, but in the cover letter itself. And so with that, do we have any questions at this time about the cover letter? I mean, the resume.